Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. Welcome to the Hindu news analysis taken up by myself, Shyam Kaggod. And in today's session, I'll be taking up 12 articles from the daily edition of Hindu newspaper. This is the list of the articles. The discussion will be comprehensive, addressing all of your concerns to clear the civil services examination, be it prelims or mains. If you like this initiative, do hit the like button. And if you're yet to join our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. But before I start the discussion, please give me a confirmation that I'm audible and visible. Do let me know in the chat section. Am I audible and visible for everyone? Done. Let's go forward then. Before I start with the first article, as usual, the announcement regarding the PPT. Anybody who wants to download the PPT after the session is over, the PPT will be provided in the Telegram channel. This is the QR code. You can join the Telegram channel and download the PPT. Second, a lot of you are beginners. You face issues in terms of reading the newspaper, which article to read, how do you make notes, etc. Regarding this, Chethan sir will be taking a special session. This will be available in a platform, that is in the Platinum platform. Those who are interested, the link to join or register for the session is given in the description below. Please do attend the session. It will be held today live at 7 p.m. And in the course of the discussion, any questions, any doubts you have, you can directly talk to Chetan sir and get your doubts resolved. Now, if someone wants to clear the civil services examination 26-27, you need to ensure you have a comprehensive coverage of the static portion. You update with the current affairs. You need to have a very good reading material. You need to attempt multiple test series for prelims as well as mains. All of this is available when you purchase our course, which is available at a price of 19,999. And if you use the code IS English, you will also get an extension of up to 12 months. Those who are interested, do check out the details by clicking on the link provided in the description below. Let me start with the first article. I'll be clubbing two articles here. One is the editorial, second one is the headlines in today's newspaper. Both of them are talking about the Monetary Policy Committee review, the MPC review, and the result, or let's say the outcomes of the review. Let's start with the basics here. We have a committee called as a Monetary Policy Committee, MPC, Monetary Policy Committee. The Monetary Policy Committee is made up of 6 people, three of them from Reserve Bank of India, and three are the experts who are appointed by Government of India. This monetary policy now meets once every 2 months, bi-monthly. It will meet once every 2 months and take certain decisions regarding interest rates. And when I say interest rate, or whenever you come across the term policy rate, remember they're essentially talking about repo rate. Is the point clear? They're essentially talking about repo rate. Right? They do not have to mention specifically repo rate. If they're simply using the term interest rate in the context of RBI, or they simply use the term, right, the policy rate, just understand by default they're talking about repo rate. So the Monetary Policy Committee meets generally, I hope you understand, once every 2 months, bi-monthly monetary policy, and takes a call regarding what should be done in the context of policy rate. The connection is very simple here. If the policy rate is altered in the sense whether it is increased or decreased, it will have an impact on the economy. Whenever inflation rate is higher, the policy rate is increased. Whenever inflation rate is lesser, in order to promote growth rate, the policy rate is reduced. And the sequence, the flow is very simple here. When you reduce the policy rate, that is, let's say when you reduce the repo rate, now the banks will be able to borrow from Reserve Bank of India at lesser rate of interest, And these particular banks will be able to lend to the borrowers in the market at lesser rate of interest. And when the borrowers, such as let's say companies, are able to take a loan at a lesser rate of interest, they will invest more in the economy. And when the investment increases, essentially that will also contribute to employment generation. It will contribute to GDP. That is essentially the flow chart that you need to remember. Now, what has been announced by the Monetary Policy Committee? What is the announcement? Two very important announcements. First one, the repo rate. The repo rate has been reduced by 50 basis points. And I know a lot of beginners, whenever you look at the term 50 basis points, you'll be confused. What is the meaning of a basis points? 100 basis points is equal to 1%. It is equal to 1%. 50 basis points essentially means what? 0.5%, which means the Reserve Bank of India now will be cutting the repo rate by 0.5%, will be reducing the repo rate by 0.5%. That is from 6%, right? From 6%, the repo rate now will be reduced to 5.5%. This is the first very important announcement. The second very important announcement is the cash reserve ratio, CRR, the cash reserve ratio. CRR has been reduced by 100 basis points to 3% now. From 4%, it has been reduced to 3%. Now, let's analyze what is the impact of it. These are the two announcements. And before I go forward, if somebody is a beginner who has a doubt, sir, what is a CRR? What does it actually mean? The banks will collect certain types of deposits. Right? These deposits are generally classified into the time deposits as well as demand deposits. Certain percentage of these deposits, again technical term is called as net demand and time liabilities. Certain percentage of this the banks will have to keep with Reserve Bank of India. Simple. Certain percentage of this the banks will have to maintain that with Reserve Bank of India. And on this, RBI doesn't pay any rate of interest. This is essentially the concept of a cash reserve ratio. Now, Reserve Bank of India has not only reduced the repo rate, but also has reduced CRR. Some of you might be thinking, sir, if repo rate is reduced, as per your explanation, already it is going to promote growth. It is going to increase the money supply. It is going to contribute to growth. Then what is the logic of reducing CRR as well? Correct? What is the logic of reducing CRR as well? You already have reduced the repo rate. And if you wanted to reduce CRR, why not reduce only CRR and stop reducing repo? Why not, right? Reduce only repo instead of reducing both of them. All of you able to understand the question here? Because ultimately the objective is simple. Reduction of repo, reduction of CRR will increase the amount of loans given by the banking sector to the borrowers. But why use two tools? Why not simply one tool? Why not reduce CRR by let's say 100 basis points or 200 basis points rather than reducing CRR plus repo? Listen to me very carefully. This is where you need to have very good conceptual clarity. You need to have very good conceptual clarity. One, CRR reduction will increase the money supply, that is, increase a durable liquidity. Remember this particular term. It will increase the durable liquidity. That is essentially, if CRR will be reduced from let's say 4% to 3%, now the banks will have more amount of money with themselves compared to earlier situation. This amount can be used to lend more in the market. Now somebody will ask me, so that can also happen using repo rate. That is, reduce the repo rate, banks will borrow more from RBI and lend more. My dear, repo rate is a short-term tool. Remember this. Repo rate is a short-term instrument. It is essentially signed, it's an agreement or a contract which is signed between or present between a bank and RBI, let's say for 7 days, for 14 days, for 28 days, which means after this specific time period, The banks which have borrowed money will have to return the money to Reserve Bank of India. Whereas, if you reduce the CRR, don't you think this additional amount of money now will be there with banks which can be used for lending purposes? That is the reason the liquidity that will be infused will be durable in nature. Everybody is able to understand the first logic behind reduction of repo as well as a reduction in CRR. I'll give you the second reason. Understand this as well. There is one more tool called as a standing deposit facility. There is one more tool called as standing deposit facility. Right? What is a standing deposit facility? It is a type of tool or an instrument under which banks will deposit money with Reserve Bank of India and earn interest on it. Simple. It is a type of instrument under which banks will deposit money with the Reserve Bank of India, earn interest on it. It is not reverse repo rate. Those who are basically saying, sir, reverse repo rate. No, reverse repo rate is different. Standing deposit facility is different. But what is the connection here? Under STF, banks will deposit money with RBI, earn interest. But what is the rate of interest paid by Reserve Bank of India on STF? It is connected to repo rate. Simple. It is connected to repo rate, meaning if repo rate will change, increase by 50 basis points, STF will also automatically increase by 50 basis. If repo rate will fall down or reduced by 50 basis points, the standing deposit facility rate of interest automatically will get adjusted, will be reduced by 50 basis points. What is the argument of Reserve Bank of India? RBI is simply saying, in the last couple of months, we have seen that lot of these banks are depositing more amount of money with RBI under STF. Simple. Lot of the banks are depositing huge amount of money with RBI under STF. Rather than lending, if banks will keep on depositing lot of money with RBI, don't you think the lending or the liquidity in the market would be affected? You could have increased the supply of loans in the market. Rather than that, you are keeping this money with RBI. So what did RBI do now? RBI has reduced repo rate by 50 basis points, which also means the rate of interest on the STF will also come down by 50 basis. And this will basically reduce the returns that the banks are earning from RBI. Now they will be prompted, because they are earning lesser from RBI. Now they'll be prompted to provide more loans to the borrowers in the market. So I hope you understand why repo rate has been reduced. What is the impact of reduction in the repo rate? What is the impact of reduction in the CRR? And what is the connection between repo rate and STF? Now, fifth very important point here, there is something called as a stance of RBI. Listen to me very carefully. There is something called as a stance. Right? There is a stance called as accommodative stance. There is a stance called as a neutral stance. Now, what has the Monetary Policy Committee done? They have changed the stance. Right? They have changed the stance. Have a look at this. It has essentially moved back from, have a look at this, right, from the earlier stance taken to the neutral stance. From accommodative, now RBI shifted to the neutral stance. And what is the importance of this particular stance? The importance of the stance is essentially to indicate what might be done. I repeat, what might be done by RBI in the next cycle. Right? For example, if RBI takes a stance of accommodative, it's generally meaning in the next cycle there is a probability. There's a probability that RBI is going to cut the interest rates. If RBI takes a stance called as a calibrated tightening, it simply means most probably in the next cycle, that is after 2 months, RBI most probably will increase the interest rate. And if RBI takes a neutral stance, it generally means based on the situation after 2 months, I'll take a call whether to reduce the interest rates or to increase the interest rate. That is generally the indicator. Right? That is an indicator. That is a signal that is given by RBI to the market. Now, what is the signal being given by RBI to the market? They have essentially shifted their stance from accommodative, now to neutral stance. From accommodative to neutral stance, which is a signal to the market that 50 basis points cut which has been introduced might not be done in the coming days again. RBI is not inclined anymore to reduce the interest rates in the coming days. This might be the final straw that the RBI is basically picking up. Everybody is okay, right? So these are the very important points that you need to understand in the context of the Monetary Policy Committee decision to cut the policy repo rate, CRR, change in the stance. Finally, what is the impact? Is the impact always positive? Think of this. Is the impact always positive of a rate cut in the market? Mostly positive, but also there are certain concerning effects. That is, positive in the sense the durable liquidity in the market will increase. Durable liquidity will increase. It will increase the money supply, more loans shall be provided. It will contribute to the growth because the RBI simply says focus should be on the growth now. Inflation is our concern. But inflation in the last 2 months is in the range of around 3.2%. Inflation is in the range of 3.2%. So inflation is not a concern for me anymore. I will promote growth now. Right? So these are the positive aspects. But at the same point of time, if RBI will reduce interest rate like this, there is also concern with higher amount of money supply. Banks will start offering lesser rate of interest to all of us when we keep money with them. Simple. When we keep money with them, that is with the banking sector in the form of savings bank account, fixed deposits, etc. Because the money supply is too high now, liquidity is very high in the market now, the banks might start offering lesser rate of that will have an impact on our earnings, our interest revenue or interest incomes from the banking sector. Right? So these are certain very important points associated with the policy of the Monetary Policy Committee now. Please have a look at all of these carefully. Now let's solve the MCQ. Let's start with the MCQ. MCQ number 125. Consider the following statements regarding cash reserve ratio. It is the reserve to be maintained by the banks with themselves. Is it a reserve that the banks will keep with themselves? No. Under CRR, the bank will have to keep this reserve with Reserve Bank of India. It is a statutory reserve. There is a term called as a statutory reserve. Statutory means, is it mentioned in any law in India? In fact, one time this question was asked in the prelims examination. It is a statutory reserve. Meaning what? Is it mentioned in any of the provisions of any law in India? Yes. The CRR and SLR, both of them. CRR is mentioned under the RBI Act, Section 42 of RBI Act. The SLR is mentioned right in Section 24 and one more section under Banking Regulation Act. So please be very careful with these technical terminologies as well. It is a reserve to be maintained by the banks with themselves? No. Lowering of this will help in controlling inflation? No. I hope you understand. When you increase the CRR, it is a signal to reduce liquidity. You want to reduce liquidity. Why do you want to reduce liquidity? Because you want to control inflation. Right? So first statement is incorrect. Second statement is incorrect. Both of them are incorrect. Right option. Right option for the question number 125 is option D. Some of you are asking questions regarding CRR. Hold on to your questions. Let me complete all the topics. Then I'll address your questions. Next article. Maintaining India's progress in food safety standards. Now, what is the logic behind this article appearing in today's newspaper? And those who will basically might ask me, what is the importance of this article? Understand this. June 7, that is today. June 7 is a World Food Safety Day. World Food Safety Day. So in that particular context, the article on the safety, food safety in India has been provided here. Let's understand what are the important points. Point number one, in case of India, is there any piece of legislation which promotes or which basically regulates food adulteration? Earlier, there was a piece of legislation by the name of PFA, Prevention of Food Adulteration Act. Prevention of Food Adulteration Act, which was introduced and implemented from 1954. But the writer simply says there was a problem with the provisions which were mentioned in the Prevention of Food Adulteration Act. Meaning, whenever you consume food, there are different types of components which are used in the manufacturing of food. Now, what are the levels of, let's say, toxins? What are the different levels of residues, etc.? Earlier, under PFA, there was no differentiation that was provided for these. All of them were treated alike, all of them were treated in the same way. But the fact of the matter is, different components at different levels might become hazardous when you consume them. Different components which are present in the food at different levels, all of them will not become hazardous at the same level. Different levels, they will become hazardous when we consume it. And that is the precise reason the PFA over a period of time was restructured or basically withdrawn, and a new law was introduced by the government. That is essentially Food Safety and Standards Act. Food Safety Act was introduced by the government in the year 2006. Food Safety and Standards right Act of 2006. And under the provisions of the act, the government of India has set up a statutory body, FSSAI, Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. Today, you want to sell a packaged product in India, you will have to take a license. It is the FSSAI which will conduct investigations if there are any allegations of violation of norms that has been prescribed by it. It also has the provision to impose monetary penalties if you do not follow all of these particular norms. For example, you will ask me, sir, what do you mean by norms? Any packaged product that you purchase from the market, be it, let's say, a soft drink, or let's say a packet of biscuit, or for that matter, a packet of chips, etc. If you turn the product like this, on the back side, there is a complete labeling which is provided. Labeling in the form of, right, what is the calorie when you consume it, what kind of raw material has been utilized, right, what kind of energy, right, what is the component in the form of carbs, proteins, etc. All of this information is provided. The reason behind that is the regulations which have been imposed on these companies by FSSAI. Done. But the writer simply says, even with these kind of reforms which we have implemented, which has improved the food safety norms, regulations in India, even today there are certain concerns. Even today there are certain issues of concern associated with the food safety standards in India. What are these? Let me give you examples here. Point number one, whenever certain norms are prescribed, whenever, right, let's say standards are prescribed by the authorities, these are generally given in ambiguous words, or limits are very ambiguous in nature. What do you mean by ambiguous in nature? Multiple times you must have heard of drinking water, or let's say, right, a food consumption. Whenever they're talking about, let's say, let's certain residues, right, pesticide residues, or let's say this kind of a toxic residues, etc., the norms are mentioned in the form of parts per million. Correct? Have you seen this? They will generally mention this in the form of parts per million. Now you tell me, as a common man, right, or as a Aam Aadmi, you and me, will we ever understand what is the meaning of a parts per million? If it is a higher, is it good? If it is a lower, is it bad? So the argument of the writer is, whenever these kind of standards have to be mentioned, have to be imposed, and moreover, you need to educate the consumers regarding this. You need to educate the consumers. That is, I should know, you should know what level is good, what level is bad. But if this is mentioned in these kind of terminologies, parts per million, etc., we will not be able to understand it. Right? Let's say for let's say educated people can understand. What about those people who are uneducated? What about people residing in rural part of India? These terminologies are very difficult for them to understand, follow, and when they purchase a product, whether this product consumption is good or bad for them. Second argument which has been put forward by the writer here is that whenever standards are prescribed, that is the thresholds are prescribed, a lot of times these thresholds are not easier to follow. That is, these are very strict standards, right? Or these particular standards are, right, not easy to follow by the companies. And whenever these kind of standards are loosened by the authority, right? For example, have a look at this. There is one example that has been provided here. The maximum residue requirement for a particular product was changed from 0.01 mg to kg to zero point 0.1 mg to kg. Again, you do not have to memorize this, but understand the logic behind it. The writer simply said, initially the standard, the MRL that was fixed, that is the residue component in the product was fixed at 0.01 mg per kg of the product. Many of the providers, or let's say the suppliers of the food commodities or food products, protested against it. They said, this is not possible for us to follow. These are very stringent standards. And these are not possible. It will become very costly for us. And that is not required also to have this kind of a stringent requirement. Now the authority changed this from the 0.01 to zero point 0.1 mg. And many experts argued, okay, this is right, something that is practicable in reality. Companies can adhere to this particular standard. But when authority changed, relaxed the regulations, many of the quarters, many of the stakeholders also basically said, right, this will increase the concern when the consumers will consume it. Because the argument was, generally when you increase the threshold, when you basically give relaxations like this, it will hurt consumers. It will create health complications for the consumers, etc. Without realizing this kind of a standard earlier which was said was not practical. It was very stringent, and it was not practical because there was no scientific argument in favor of that. That is the second point which has been mentioned here. Third point, whenever the standards are set up, for example, there is something called as acceptable daily intake, ADI, right? Acceptable daily intake. Or for that matter, there is one more argument, or there is one more term called as maximum residue limits. Be it ADI or be it MRL, these norms which have been decided by the authority, these are according to the international practices. These are according to the international practices. But the writer simply says the kind of food habits which are followed in India, the kind of food that is consumed in India, the kind of commodities that are consumed in India, these are not the same compared to the international market. If you're simply copy pasting that, if you're taking the standards from the international norm and simply pasting that in India, it doesn't represent the cultural differences which will influence the food habits in India. So the argument here is very simple. You need to have your own studies done. You need to have a comprehensive study being done in India based on the food habits, based on the ingredients which are used, based on the residues which are found in India. And upon the studies being done, now decide the ADR, average daily intake, and maximum residue limits which are applicable for Indian consumers, which are reflecting the products which are manufactured and sold, consumed in the Indian market. Right? So this is the third point. Fourth point, just to consolidate all of this, he takes an example of MSG. I'm pretty sure all of you heard of MSG, right? The MSG basically stands for monosodium glutamate, right? Monosodium glutamate, MSG. Those who are, right, let's say consumers of Chinese foods, they will know this. Again, Chinese products which are sold in India, right? Let's say noodles, right? Or for many of these Chinese food products. MSG, generally it is there in the discussion. In case of India, when you look at, let's say, what has been the research being done on MSG, the writer simply says, in India, whenever the product has MSG, whenever a product sold in the market has MSG, there is a notice which is printed on the product. There is information which has to be printed saying that higher consumption of MSG is not good for infants in India. That has to be printed, label has to be provided. But the writer simply says this is not true. This is not true. Reason being, what is the research and development which has been done by, let's say, the reputed organizations around the world? Look at what they have done. For example, World Health Organization, WHO, simply says there is no such research which basically connects the problem health complications developed by the people with the consumption of MSG. There is no such research which basically verifies this kind of a claim. So the writer simply says you are simply following what was earlier reported, what was earlier thought was correct, and you're simply continuing with the same labeling norms even today. And don't you think this will create confusion in the minds of the consumers? Now the consumers are confused. WHO says nothing wrong, right? No problem with the consumption of MSG. And on the other side, you are mandating a labeling requirement saying that consumption is not good for so and so XYZ. This is going to create more confusion rather than promoting more safety for consumption of food. So these are some of the concerns which have been raised by the writer regarding the food safety standards in context of India. What is the way forward then? What should be your answer regarding way forward? These are the recommendations. First one, we will have to invest in doing research which is specifically applicable to India, which is applicable to whole of India regarding water levels, or let's say toxic levels in Indian waters, regarding, right, let's say residue levels present in the food that we eat, etc., etc. So conduct a research which is specific to India, and based on that make policies, right, decide the threshold levels, etc. Second, risk communication should be improved by the simplification of messaging. I told you, right, parts per million, etc., etc. Right, so messaging should be much more simple, which is understandable to the common man, which is acceptable to all of us when we purchase and we understand the messaging which is provided on the label. Third one, capacity building has to be strengthened. That is, invest in training for the experts, right? Invest in research and development so that risk assessors are trained well, they're able to understand, right, and provide inputs to the government regarding the changes to be done in the policy making. Regularly review and updating standards in line with the latest research and development. And finally, I promote transparency in the system, promote education for the consumers, provide education to the consumers, give them information as to how to identify which is a good product, which product is more safer for you, etc., etc. And so these are the recommendations which have been provided, which you can use in writing a mains based question. Now, associated with this, one MCQ number 126. Consider the following statements regarding Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. It functions under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. How many of you think this is correct? Do let me know in the chat section. It functions under Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. It is a statutory body. As per the Act, the FSSAI shall consist of chairperson and 22 members, out of which one third shall be women. The third statement is slightly tricky, more importantly, difficult, because this is not generally provided in the newspapers, etc. I'll give you an information here. Please have a look at this particular picture. Again, should you remember the whole picture? Not necessary. The pictorial representation of the structure of Food Safety Authority. The Food Authority, right, basically is chaired by the chairperson. Right? There is a chairperson appointed by the government. In addition to chairperson, there are 22 members. And the act simply says, or the guidelines simply say, one third of these members will have to be women. Is the point clear to everyone? One third of these members shall be women. This is mentioned in the website also. It is right, let's say it's a guideline as well. So third statement, yes, that is correct. It's a statutory body. Yes, it is set up under the Food Safety Act of 2006. It functions under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Yes, all the three statements are true. Right option for the question will be option C. Done? Okay. Now, associated with this, I've given a question for you to practice descriptive answer writing as well. To improve upon the food safety standards achieved so far, there is a need for promoting transparency, public education, and the application of science based evidence. Elaborate in 250 words. It is essentially you need the answer to this is essentially you need to read the article and explain whatever we have discussed so far, that is regarding the problems as well as the solution. That will be the answer to this particular question. Let me go forward. Next article, support to poor prisoner scheme. Support to poor prisoner scheme. The government of India, specifically the Ministry of Home Affairs, MHA, Ministry of Home Affairs, back in the year 2023, announced a scheme by the name of Support to Poor Prisoner Scheme. Now, what is the importance of the Poor Prisoner Scheme here? Every now and then, you will come across reports which will mention large number of people who are held in jails in India. Correct? The number of people who are there in jails in India, they'll simply say, right, per cell, these are the number of people, or per, right, prison. This is the, right, let's say appropriate number of people, but they'll simply come to a conclusion saying that the Indian jails are overcrowded. Yes or no, please do let me know in the chat section. They'll come to a conclusion, Indian jails are overcrowded. That is more than the required number of people. Required in the sense, according to the area of the jail cells, more than that have been crammed in the jail cells. And what is the impact of this? When there is too much of overcrowding, right, there are security concerns that can be raised. There is, right, a lot of times a concern associated with the hygiene that is being hygiene associated with the prisoners, etc. So the problem is Indian jails are overcrowded. But one of the reasons why the Indian jails are overcrowded is because of the under trial prisoners. Because of under trial prisoners. Right? That is, these are the people who have been put in the jails. The case is happening. Right? The case is happening, but these are under trial. No, right? Let's say punishment has been meted out. The case is happening, but they're still they're present still in the jails. The problem associated with a high number of under trials in India, according to the National Crimes Records Bureau (NCRB), more than 70% of the people are under trials who are present in the jails. The problem with this is it will essentially erode the faith on the judiciary on one side. People will start losing faith on judiciary. That is, they will simply say, no point. I've been alleged of doing something. The case is happening. I'm still there in the prison. And for many, many years, these people, right, rot in jails because of multiple reasons. So, one, it will erode the faith on the judiciary. In addition to this, the burden on the judiciary will also keep on increasing. That is, the judiciary now will have to keep on handling these cases very often. Already, the concern is the judiciary doesn't have the infrastructure to handle all of these cases. That's the reason at different levels, crores of cases are pending in India. In addition to this, one reason why there is so many number of people under trial prisoners who are there in jails is because the bail has been granted to them. The court has been right has provided no bail to them, but whenever the bail is granted, you'll have to provide certain surety. You'll have to provide certain surety. That is, you'll have to make a bail payment. Only then they will allow you to, right, get out of the jail. upon bail. The problem is many of these under trial prisoners are very poor. Many of them are very, very poor. And problem with this is because many of them are poor, whatever surety they are supposed to provide, they do not have this amount of money. I hope you understand. They do not have this amount of money to provide, right? Let's say the bond value and get out of jail upon granting of the bail. That is the precise reason the Ministry of Home Affairs back in the year 2023 came out with an initiative called as the Support to Poor Prisoners Scheme. Under this, the process is very simple. Imagine the court has given or granted a bail to you, but even after granting a bail for let's say next 7 days, you're not able to get out of jail. You're not able to post the bail and get out of jail. In such cases, these right, let's say prisoners' names will be recommended. These prisoner names will be recommended by the District Legal Services Authority DLSA to District Level Empowered Committee. DLEC, District Level Empowered Committee. These are supposed to be set up by the state governments at every district level according to the standard operating procedures recommended by the Minister of Home Affairs. Now, this DLEC will pick up the name, find out what is the issue. Is the issue because the person is very poor? They are not able to post the bail amount. In such cases, if the bail amount is up to 40,000 rupees, the government will essentially provide this assistance for the under trial to post the bail and get out of the jail. Is everybody able to understand? This is essentially the support to poor prisoner scheme. Now, what is the problem? As usual, with many of the schemes that have been announced by the central government, there is a problem associated with the implementation. Implementation. What do you mean by implementation? The state governments are supposed to set up the committees. The committees are supposed to identify the poor prisoners under trial and give the recommendation to the DLEC. The argument that has been put forward by the officials of the Ministry of Home Affairs is that the state governments are not utilizing the funds. We have allocated the funds. Annually, around 20 crore rupees under the scheme is set up by the central government, which can be utilized right for providing the bail assistance to under trials. The government of India is now saying we have allocated the funds, but the state governments are not able to utilize these particular. They are falling short. They are not performing their duties correctly. And that is the reason the states and union territories have been asked to better utilize the funds under this initiative. Everybody is okay? Right? So, this is the discussion associated with the scheme. Right? I hope you understand. A lot of you will have different opinions regarding the government providing the assistance. But please be careful. Do not have extreme opinions whenever you read these kind of statements. I can see some of you commenting. Right, so argument is simple. It is a scheme announced by the center. This is a right essentially to provide support to poor under trial prisoners. But the implementation is lagging behind. Okay, associated with this, IMCQ. Consider the following statements regarding support to poor prisoner scheme launched by the Ministry of Law and Justice. If you had not come across this article today, I'm pretty sure most of you would have said first statement is correct. All of you are able to understand this. If I had not discussed this article, if you do not come across this article in the newspaper, you would simply close your eyes and say, law and justice, perfect sense. Right? Let's say judiciary, right? Under trial prisoners, the term prison is there and law and justice is there. Then you'll jump to a conclusion. Statement is one. No, statement is incorrect. It is MHA. It targets the poor under trial prisoners who face financial constraints in getting bail. Yes, it is a centrally sponsored scheme. No, it is a central sector scheme. Central sector scheme. Centrally sponsored means center plus a state will contribute for the implementation. That is financial contribution. It is a central sector scheme. Only second statement is correct. How many of the above statements are correct? Only one of the statement is. Okay, let me go forward. Next article. Key rail project inaugurated in Jammu and Kashmir. J&K. At key rail projects have been inaugurated by the Prime Minister. Yesterday, this was there in multiple, right, let's say news channels as well. What is the importance? Importance is simple. This Chenab Bridge has been inaugurated. It's a engineering marvel, by the way. Right? Engineering marvel, because understand this, these rail projects which have been inaugurated by the Prime Minister, these have been constructed in certain difficult regions. It's not a normal terrain on which these bridges have been constructed. These are very difficult terrains where wind speeds are very, very high. There are deep gorges here, right? There is a seismic activity in the surrounding region, etc. So, keeping those particular points in the mind, when you look at these kind of, right, let's say infrastructure projects, these are engineering marvels, right? So, Chenab Bridge has been inaugurated by the government or Prime Minister now. So, three important announcements, or let's say the inaugurations. One is the Chenab Bridge. Second one is right, the Anji Bridge. Anji Bridge is the first bridge in India which has been held by wires, cable stayed. Cable stayed bridge essentially means, imagine this is the land, right, and this is the bridge. I hope you understand this. This is a land and this is a bridge. The whole bridge is being held by cables. The whole bridge is being held by the cables, right? So this is the first cable stayed railway bridge in India. Can be asked in the preliminary examination. Please make a note of this. And the third one is Vande Bharat train service between Katra and Srinagar. What is the importance of the railway projects here? What is the importance? Apart from the height of, right, the bridge is so much, the length of the bridge is so much, etc. All of that information is provided here. But what is the importance of these bridges? Listen to me carefully. One, it is going to reduce the time that is taken to travel in this region. Already the roads are existing, but the need to construct a bridge was felt because a lot of times, because of, let's say, different things, there are landslides which will close these roads. And the time taken to travel through roads is also very high. According to one estimates, it's around 12 hours. With the construction of these particular bridges, the time taken will be cut down now. Time taken will be reduced. That is the point number one. Point number two, these kind of, let's say, the infrastructure needs to be constructed in order to ensure more safety and security, in order to improve security. For example, if the quick connectivity is present in these regions, can you move the security forces much faster? Of course, yes. So it will also improve the safety and security in this particular region. Third very important point is it will help tourism. Remember this. It will help and promote tourism in this particular region. Right? So that is also one of the very important outcomes. Fourth very important outcome, economic activity in the form of transportation of goods. In the form of transportation of goods. For example, let's say apples, which are grown in that particular region, pashmina shawls, which are produced in that particular region. Now, these can be easily transported from that particular region to other parts of India. And not just right exporting from or moving the agriculture commodities like this, the importing of agriculture commodities, raw materials, inputs, etc., can also be done much faster, much sooner. And by the way, this Vande Bharat train, which has been inaugurated, which will operate now, it is all weather. It is all weather. That is irrespective of even the minus temperatures, which are generally observed in this region, do take place in this region. Even at minus temperatures, the Vande Bharat services will be active in the region. Right, so these are certain very important points associated with the railway projects which have been announced or which have been inaugurated. Not announced, announcement was done when Indira Gandhi was the prime minister, right? More than decades now, multiple decades old announcement. But these projects have been inaugurated. These are the four different parts of the railway project which were constructed over a period of time. Done? Okay, let me go forward. Next article. Earlier, I had discussed something or one article associated with a concept called as gold loans. All of you remember this? Couple of days ago, I discussed this concept of gold loans, and in the discussion, I had mentioned regarding LTV. I told you that RBI had mandated an LTV, loan to value ratio of 75% now. All the banks and NBFCs will have to stick to LTV of 75% irrespective of who is taking a loan, etc. etc. And regarding that, Finance Ministry had asked RBI to have a look at it. The Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu also had a written letter to the central government to ask RBI to have a review of this, because lot of small borrowers would be affected by LTV norms. Now, updation associated with this. Updation. What is updation? Have a look at this. RBI now has made a review of these particular LTV norms. Now, please have a look at this. If the loan is up to 2.5 lakh rupees, if the loan is up to 2.5 lakh rupees, that is again gold loan, LTV applicable will be 85%. Will be 85%. So RBI has increased the LTV ratio for lending against the gold to 85% for borrowings under 2.5 lakh. And right, have a look at this. Earlier it was 75%. Now it has been made right 85%, up to 2.5 lakh. And if it is above 2.5 and up to 5 lakh rupees, it will be changed to 80%. It will go down to 80% LTV. And if it is more than 5 lakh rupees, it will become 75%. Is everybody okay with this update? Do let me know in the chat section. Is everybody okay with this update? Rather than having a uniform LTV for all the loans, now it will be graded. It will be graded. And what is the use of it? If you're wondering what is the use of it, most of the loans, more than 60 to 70% of the gold loans which are taken are up to 2 lakh rupees in India, are up to 2 lakh rupees. And because these are generally taken by the middle income households, lower income households, when the LTV is increased, instead of 75, it will become 85. It will help the borrowers to borrow more without having to pledge more gold under the gold loan initiative. Done? So this is an update. Please make a note of this. Graded LTV has been announced. Graded LTV. And before I go forward, let me ask you one question. What is the maximum value of the gold that you can pledge and take a loan? Let me see. Or let's say volume, not value, volume. What is the maximum volume of the gold that you can pledge and take a loan? Anybody knows the answer? The answer to this is also given here. The answer to this is given in the article itself. The maximum volume of the gold that you can provide to take a loan is 1 kg. Gold is 1 kg. Silver, remember this, 10 kgs. Silver is a 10 kgs. Gold is maximum 1 kg. Can be asked in the preliminary examination next year. Please be very, very careful. And somebody is asking what is LTV? Two people. LTV is loan to value. That is, what is the value of the gold today that you're pledging? 75% of the value will be given to you in the form of loan, provided it is more than 5 lakh. If it is up to 2.5, up to 5, 85%, 80% respective. Let me go forward. Next article associated with science and technology. Please make a note of this. There are multiple types of amoebas which are present. There are multiple types of amoebas, right? Different varieties of amoebas which are present. Right? These are present in the open atmosphere itself. But out of these 400 plus varieties, or let's say the species of amoeba which are present, there are very few of these species which are, right, let's say, disease causing, which are disease causing. That is, these kind of amoeba species will cause disease, pathogenic amoebas. This can be asked in the preliminary examination. Please make a note of this. I have given you the list here. And I've given the list here. Please have a look at it. Again, just have a look at it. Can be asked straightforward in the preliminary examination. For example, which of the following species of amoeba are pathogenic in nature? Can be a straightforward question. These are the types. Now, what is the update here? What is the update? Update is very simple. There are different types of species of amoeba which are pathogenic, I told you. These cause a brain fever. These cause brain fever. That is a different types of, right, encephalitis syndrome. Encephalitis, acute, etc., etc. Different types of brain fevers are there. So the argument here is, whenever there is, right, let's say a pathogen which has entered into host body, that is, let's say us, children, etc., you conduct a test. When you conduct a test, you will identify there is, right, a pathogen so and so, and you will create a treatment. You will provide a treatment to kill the pathogen. Until now, it has been stated in the article that whenever these kind of cases were found, for testing purposes, they used to send the test samples to another test laboratory. For example, there is one test laboratory which has been mentioned here, which is there in another state. And whenever you do not have sufficient testing facilities, you do not have a testing kit developed by yourself present in the same region, it might lead to delays. It might basically lead to starting the cure or starting the treatment after a delayed response. So the problem was there, right? And now the Kerala government has announced that the state public health lab, remember this, the state public health lab has developed its kits. Testing kits have been developed by this particular lab, using which the deadly amoeba which causes the encephalitis or encephalitis syndrome can be detected much sooner. And once you can detect it much sooner, the treatment can be started much sooner, thereby reducing the cases of death of the host patient here. Because mind you, when you talk about, right, the amoeba and these diseases, that is amoebic meningoencephalitis, these are very deadly diseases. The mortality rate, right, in these cases is more than 90%, where most of the times the patient who has contracted this will end up, right, dying and not surviving because of the disease. So the state lab has developed it. These are, right, let's say the pathogenic amoebas, and this is the update associated with that. Please make a note of this. Next, another small article. Shah, Mr. Amit Shah has launched BBA initiative. BBA initiative. What is this BBA initiative that is mentioned here? Simple. The government of India in the last couple of years has been implementing multiple measures in order to ensure the administration in India is done using our languages, using languages which are native to India. And I'm pretty sure all of you know this. Most of the administrative work in India is done in English. That is, right, the documents are printed in English, right? The documents are filed in English. The communication between the governments is done in English, etc. Now, in order to reduce this kind of a usage of a foreign language and promote our own language, the government of India in the budget has announced an initiative, that is the Bharatiya Bhasha Anubhag. Bharatiya Bhasha Anubhag, BBA. BBA has been set up under the Home Ministry. Remember this. Lot of you will be confused associated with this. The Bharatiya Bhasha Anubhag has been set up under the Ministry of Home Affairs. And right, this BBA is part of, right, it is part of the ministry, right, that is the Ministry of Home Affairs. Specifically under this, there is right, a ministry, I'm sorry, the Ministry of Home Affairs, it has been set up, and that is the Department of Official Languages. Department of Official Languages, remember this also. Department of Official Languages, which functions under Ministry of Home Affairs. So argument here is simple. The government of India in the budget has proposed a certain funding to develop this particular Anubhag. What will be the role of this? Right, let's say the Indian languages section. In English, it is called as Indian languages section. What will be the role of this? Role is very simple. According to the statements which have been provided by the representatives of the government, this will be developing different systems which can translate translate Hindi into other languages used by the states in India and vice versa. For example, the, the central government minister will write a letter in Hindi to any of the ministers using another language. It could be, let's say, Kannada, it could be Tamil, it could be, right, Telugu, right, different languages, or Odia for that matter. The argument is there is always right, a problem in the sense, right, a minister from another state which uses another language may not understand what is being communicated in Hindi. And when this minister will give reply, let's say, write a letter in reply using their language, that is their state language, again there is a gap in the communication. So argument is very simple. Now this right, BBA, along with, that is the partnership with the CDAC, will be developing systems where Hindi to regional languages, the conversion will happen, translation will happen, and when reply will happen, reply will be done automatically from that, right, let's say the different language. Now the translation will happen in Hindi. This will essentially ensure that the administration that will be carried out will not be using English, rather Indian language. This is essentially the importance of the Bharatiya Bhasha Anubhag or Indian languages section, which has been set up under the Ministry of Home Affairs. Done. Now, have a look at this. The Department of Official Languages. Right? The Department of Official Languages functions under dash. Straightforward question. It should not be difficult now. Ministry of Education, no. Ministry of Home Affairs, yes. Ministry of Culture, no. I've given this because if you have not read the article, slightly tricky question. Slightly tricky because you will feel that official languages should come under Education Department also. You'll feel under it should come under Ministry of Culture as well. No, but under the Ministry of Home Affairs. Okay. Next article, UMEED Portal. Right? UMEED Portal. The Ministry of Minority Affairs has launched a new portal. The full form of UMEED is Unified Work Management, Empowerment, Efficiency and Development. This is the full form of UMEED. What is the importance of this particular portal? It will be a centralized digital repository. That's it. Is the point clear? I'll repeat this again. It will be a centralized digital depository of all the work properties. It will also have a different, right, let's say usages, such as any kind of a grievance that you have associated with a work property, you can raise in this particular portal. It will also have, right, a system to promote transparent leasing of the work properties. It will also integrate, that is the geographic, the identification, that is right, what is the longitude, latitude, etc. The GIS mapping will also be provided, or it will be integrated with this particular portal assets which are listed here. And it will also be a portal which will provide public access. That is you can in real time check what kind of work property is getting listed, right? Anybody has a lease on it, what is the grievance against it, anybody has raised a grievance, etc., etc. All of that can be tracked in this particular one stop portal regarding work properties in India. So remember 2 points, right? One, Ministry of Minority Affairs has launched it, and this is the full form, and these are the usages, objectives of the portal. Okay, couple of more articles, just factual information now. Next article, Mr. Modi to attend G7, that is group of 7 countries. The G7 summit is about to be held now, and there has been a lot of discussion associated with the G7. Now, what is the update here? Update is very simple. The Prime Minister of Canada has extended or has basically invited Mr. Modi to participate in the G7 group meeting. Earlier, it was extended to one more country, and that led to a lot of discussion, deliberation whether India will be invited or not. Now, India has also been invited by Canadian Prime Minister to participate in the G7 meet coming up. What is the importance of the article? Importance is in the sense that in recent times, the relations between India and Canada have suffered a certain drawbacks. Certain setbacks have been experienced. Right? Over a period of time, certain allegations by the previous government, previous leadership was alleged against Indian officials regarding involvement of Indian officials in assassinating certain, right, let's say unwanted terrorists. So argument is very simple here. The relations, right, the diplomatic relations between both India and Canada have experienced a setback, no doubt regarding that. Right, allegations were made, counter allegations were made, right? The government of India rejected all these allegations. The diplomats who were appointed in both of the countries were expelled, right? So certain impact has been felt. Now with the change in the leadership in Canada, we expect these relations to normal and strengthen in the coming days, and that is expected to happen with participation of prime minister in the upcoming G7 conference. Done. Now, next article, just an update again. Starlink has been given license by Government of India. That is the Department of Telecom has issued the license to Starlink, has given the license to Starlink to provide internet services. Right? Again, not just any internet services, satellite internet services. That is essentially the internet signals, right, will be beamed directly from the satellite to a receiver which is fitted on this infrastructure, and you can use the internet. That is a different compared to the fiber or the broadband internet that we're using, which is a wired internet. So this becomes a third company in India to get the satellite internet services license. Earlier, the two companies are one, the Utelsat, and the second one is Geo. These two have been given the license. This will become the third company to get the license. Okay. And final article, just an update in art and culture. A new Shiva temple, new in the sense, new finding. Okay. So a Shiva temple has been unearthed in Madurai. A Shiva temple has been unearthed in Madurai. It has been dated according to the data provided here, according to the researchers. It is dated, right, for the period 2017 to 2018 CE. And this Shiva temple is, right, being or has been built by the kings during the Pandya period. Right? The Pandyas, right? I am pretty sure when you read about history, you will come across Pandyas in the southern India. So Pandyas, right, are said to have constructed this particular during the reign of Pandyas. This right Shiva temple is said to have been constructed. Right. So these are certain important points. Again, just for sake of information, please make a note of this. Because this article is there in the current affairs, suddenly next year in the preliminary examination, there can be question on Pandyas from southern India. That is the connection you need to establish. Right. So it has been constructed during the reign of Maravarman Sundara Pandya. So these are two important points associated with the article. Done. Okay, right. So these are the important articles I wanted to discuss in today's session. If you have any questions, do let me know. But before that, if you like this initiative, if you have benefited from this initiative, then show us your appreciation by hitting the like button and provide your valuable comments in the section below as well after the session is over. If you have any questions, do let me know. I'll address your questions. Otherwise, we can close the session for today. How CRR is durable? My dear, repo rate, when you borrow under repo, it is for 7 days. It is for 14. It is for 28, etc. Which means you take money today, you will have to return after, let's say, 7 days. But in case of a CRR, when you don't have to borrow under CRR. When CRR is reduced, imagine until now CRR is 4%, which means out of 100 CR, you kept 4 CR with RBI. Now it will be reduced to 3%, which means you will have to keep only 3 CR with RBI. And RBI doesn't change CRR every month. RBI doesn't change CRR, right? Even after 2 months, immediately after 2 months, it is generally done after, right? Let's say a certain time period, which means now you will have extra 1 CR to lend in the market. That is the reason, right? Essentially, the CRR will induce durable liquidity in the market. Okay, bullet repayment. Bullet repayment simply means normally when you take a loan, you will make EMI, equated monthly installments. But when you take a loan, which is a bullet payment or bullet repayment, you do not have to make monthly installments. Upon the end of the loan tenure, in case of gold loans, it is 12 months for bullet repayment. Upon the end of the tenure, you will pay the principal along with the interest in one shot. That is called as bullet repayment. Okay. How is repo rate linked with STF? My dear, it's not how. It is RBI simply says the gap between repo and STR will be, let's say, 50 basis points. Let's take a simple example. Let's say it is 50 basis points. If repo rate is 4%, STR automatically will become 3.5. If repo rate will become 5%, STR automatically will become 4.5. This is the linkage I'm talking about. Okay. Creation of digital inventory. My dear, it simply means there is a portal where all the data will be present. That's it. Geotagging means what is the longitude and latitude? Geography. Longitude and latitude, that is coordinates. When you know the coordinates and you can check the coordinates, that is called a geotagging. Okay, done. So that's it from my side in today's session then. If you like this initiative, do hit the like button. If you're yet to join our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Thank you. Have a great day.